In just 38 seconds, $2.4 billion in classified FBI contracts. Kash Patel didn't expect the folder. He didn't see the camera zooming. Jasmine Crockett didn't just question, she executed. The chamber froze. Even seasoned reporters stopped typing. What did the Texas Congresswoman reveal that made the most powerful FBI director in America lose his job in under a minute? At exactly 2:47 p.m., the House Oversight Committee chamber buzzed with anticipation. FBI Director Kash Patel walked in like an investigator who had seen too many lies, confident, calculated, carrying stacks of declassified memos and a leather briefcase. His navy suit was immaculate, FBI pin gleaming under the harsh lights. Across from him, Rep. Jasmine Crockett sat like a prosecutor who had already won her case. Her fingers drummed against a thick manila folder labeled Confidential 97 Contracts. Behind her, congressional aides shuffled through evidence boxes, bank records, phone logs, encrypted USB drives. Director Patel, Crockett began, her voice cutting through the chamber's tension. You testified, under oath, that FBI contractor relationships are fully transparent to Congress. You said, every dollar is accounted for, every partnership is disclosed. Patel leaned into his microphone, jaw clenched. Congresswoman, every significant contract follows proper disclosure protocols. The FBI operates with complete integrity. Stop. Crockett's hand slammed the folder open. Papers scattered across her desk. Because I have 97 contracts that say you're lying. The chamber went silent. Camera zoomed in as his knuckles turned white against his briefing papers. Sweat appeared on his forehead. 47 seconds passed before Crockett pulled out Document 1, holding it up for the cameras. Phantom Security, LLC. $47 million contract signed February 15, 2025. Her eyes locked onto his. This company doesn't exist in any federal database. Not Treasury, not Commerce, not even Delaware Incorporation records. Patel shifted in his chair, confidence evaporating. His briefcase slipped from his lap. That's classified operational security. I can't discuss. Classified? Crockett interrupted, waving a second document. Tech Ghost Industries, $89 million for cyber infrastructure. Another ghost company, Digital Shadows Corp., $56 million for surveillance technology. Should I continue reading, or would you like to explain why the FBI is paying $2.4 billion to companies that exist only on paper? Within minutes, Twitter exploded. Patel contract scandal began trending worldwide. Fox News anchors looked stunned as they cut their programming. CNN broke into coverage with breaking FBI director, confronted over secret contracts. Patel's face drained of color. His hands trembled as he reached for his water glass, nearly knocking over the microphone. Congresswoman, operational security requires discretionary measures for national security. Discretionary, Crockett's voice echoed through the chamber. Or deliberate fraud. She stood up, towering over her desk. At exactly 2:48 p.m. came the moment that ended a career. Crockett leaned forward into her microphone, her voice dropping to a lethal whisper. Director Patel, would you like to tell Congress about your personal relationship with Marcus Chen, the supposed CEO of Phantom Security? Silence stretched for exactly 4 seconds. Cameras captured every micro-expression, the slight twitch of his left eye, the way his Adam's apple bobbed. Or should I read your text messages to this committee? Patel's jaw dropped open. His briefcase slipped completely, scattering FBI memos across the marble floor with a sound like thunder. How did you? That's impossible. Make sure the February payment clears before the hearing, Crockett read from her phone. Delete all communication after transfer. Use the burner phone for anything sensitive. Sent from your personal number to Marcus Chen, who apparently runs all 97 companies from a single P.O. box in Dover, Delaware. The chamber erupted in chaos. Gasps rippled through the gallery. Republican committee members sat frozen in shock. Even the stenographer stopped typing, staring at the unfolding disaster. 18 seconds remaining in what would become known as the 38-second. "I can explain," Patel stammered, his investigator confidence shattered. Sweat poured down his face, staining his collar. Those contracts were authorized through proper channels. Proper channels? Crockett pulled out another document. Like the $340,000 wire transfer to your personal account from Tech Ghost Industries. The same day you signed their contract? The gallery fell silent. Even camera operators seemed to hold their breath. "No need for explanations," Crockett said, standing to her full height. "Congress will vote on your removal in 10 minutes. 28 seconds total." But Crockett wasn't finished. "Wait," Patel's voice cracked. "Those contracts were authorized by the Attorney General's office." "Which Attorney General?" Crockett's final question hung in the air. "Because according to DOJ records, none of these contracts were ever submitted for approval." Patel's silence was his confession. His mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. The most powerful law enforcement official in America had been reduced to a stammering, sweating mess. In exactly. The vote was swift and brutal. 30-47-48. Even Republicans abandoned ship, distancing themselves from the sinking director. Within 20 minutes, FBI agents, his own agents, were escorting their former director from the building he had commanded just an hour earlier. Social media erupted with footage of Patel's security badge being confiscated at the exit, his FBI credentials stripped away by the same security personnel who had saluted him that morning. The symbolism was devastating. Speaker Johnson called an emergency press conference, his usually measured tone replaced by barely contained anger. "The House has acted decisively to preserve the integrity of our federal law enforcement agencies. No one, regardless of position, is above the law." Outside the Capitol building, protesters had already gathered, chanting, "Lock him up." The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The man who built his career investigating corruption and promising to drain the swamp was now facing criminal charges himself. That evening, as Washington buzzed with the story that had shocked the political establishment, Jasmine Crockett sat in her dimly lit congressional office, reviewing the remaining evidence spread across her desk like a crime scene. The 97 contracts were just the beginning, the tip of an iceberg that ran deep into the heart of the FBI's operations. Bank records showed dozens of payments to Patel's personal accounts, offshore shell companies, and family trusts. Phone logs revealed coordination with Trump allies, defense contractors, and foreign intelligence operatives. Hotel receipts placed him at secret meetings in Dubai, Prague, and Moscow, meetings that never appeared on his official travel schedule. Her secure phone buzzed with an encrypted message from the House Ethics Committee, Phase 2, authorized. "Ready for the banking records?" She smiled, looking out through her office window at the Capitol dome illuminated against the dark November sky. 24 hours ago, Kash Patel had been untouchable. Tonight, federal prosecutors were preparing criminal indictments. Sometimes the strongest weapon isn't a badge or a subpoena. It's truth, archived and revealed at precisely the right second. What happens when someone who built their power on secrecy meets someone who specialized in exposure? If law enforcement can't survive transparency, was it ever legitimate in the first place? The next morning brought revelations that would shake Washington. Federal prosecutors announced criminal investigations spanning multiple jurisdictions: New York's Southern District, Delaware's Corporate Crimes Division, and D.C.'s Public Corruption Unit. All opened simultaneous cases. The FBI launched an internal review of every contract signed during Patel's 9-month tenure, while congressional committees issued 47 subpoenas. At 6 a.m., FBI Associate Director Jennifer Moore held an emergency press conference from the J. Edgar Hoover building. Standing before a podium flanked by American flags, her voice was steady but devastating. Effective immediately, all contracts signed by former Director Patel are suspended pending investigation. We are cooperating fully with federal prosecutors and Congress. Behind the scenes, chaos reigned. FBI field offices were receiving urgent directives to freeze all payments to the 97 Phantom companies. Bank records subpoenaed overnight revealed a sophisticated money laundering operation across 3 continents. Shell companies in the Cayman Islands had received over $400 million in FBI funds, then wire transferred to accounts in Dubai, Prague, and Geneva. Meanwhile, Jasmine Crockett's phone hadn't stopped ringing since 5 a.m. CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and international outlets like the BBC were requesting exclusive interviews. Her chief of staff, Maria Santos, burst into her office, carrying interview requests 3 inches thick. "Congresswoman, we've got requests from 64 news outlets," Santos said, breathless. "The New York Times wants the bank records. The Washington Post is running a front-page exposé tomorrow. Someone from 60 Minutes just called. They want a full investigation." Crockett leaned back in her chair, processing the magnitude of what had unfolded. "What about justice?" Attorney General Clark is calling an emergency meeting with congressional leadership at 3 p.m. Word is they're considering RICO charges. RICO, the Racketeer, Influenced, and Corrupt Organizations Act. If prosecutors could prove Patel ran the FBI like a criminal enterprise, he wouldn't just lose his job. He could face 20 years in federal prison. By noon, political aftershocks were reverberating through Washington. Senator Chuck Grassley, the ranking Republican on the Judiciary Committee, released a statement that stunned his own party. If these allegations are proven true, this represents the most serious breach of public trust in FBI history. Director Patel must be held accountable to the fullest extent of the law. The Trump administration went into damage control mode. White House Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders faced a brutal press briefing, dodging questions about whether Trump knew about the Phantom contracts. "The president has complete confidence in the justice system," she said, her usual confidence notably absent. "We will let the legal process run its course." But privately, Trump's inner circle was in panic mode. According to sources inside the White House, the president had called an emergency meeting with his legal team. The question haunting everyone: how much did Trump know? By late afternoon, Patel's personal attorney, Thomas Kellner, was making the rounds on cable news, attempting damage control. His appearances were disasters. On CNN, Anderson Cooper pressed him relentlessly. "Your client received hundreds of thousands of dollars from companies that didn't exist. How do you explain that?" Kellner's response: "These were legitimate business relationships. Only made things worse. How could relationships with non-existent companies be legitimate?" Social media erupted with brutal memes and viral videos. Patelgate was trending worldwide, surpassing even election 2024. In engagement, TikTok videos of Patel's stammering went viral, with users adding dramatic music and slow-motion effects to the moment his briefcase fell. Late-night comedians were already writing jokes for their evening shows. Stephen Colbert tweeted, "Breaking: man who promised to investigate everyone else surprised to be investigated himself." The political satire website The Onion published a headline that captured the absurdity perfectly. "Local man shocked to learn FBI director can be fired for running fake company scheme from Delaware P.O. box." Meanwhile, calls for Trump's impeachment began circulating on social media. "Impeach Trump now" started trending as Democrats questioned what the president knew about Patel's activities and when he knew it. Progressive activists organized emergency protests outside the White House, demanding accountability from the administration that had appointed the disgraced FBI director. As evening fell over Capitol Hill, Jasmine Crockett found a quiet moment in her office. The manila folder labeled Confidential 97 Contracts still sat on her desk, now joined by boxes of additional evidence. Phone records, bank statements, flight logs showing Patel's unexplained trips to tax havens. Her secure phone buzzed with an encrypted message from a whistleblower inside the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. "You've only scratched the surface. The pharmaceutical contracts are worse. Check Montenegro accounts." She opened her laptop and began typing a new subpoena request. The 97 contracts weren't the end. They were the beginning of what would become the largest corruption investigation in FBI history. Outside her window, the Capitol dome was illuminated against the night sky, a symbol of democracy that had proven its resilience. In 38 seconds of congressional testimony, the American system of checks and balances had worked exactly as the founders intended. By midnight, federal agents were serving search warrants at Patel's home in Arlington, Virginia. Neighbors watched in stunned silence as boxes of evidence were loaded into unmarked vans. The man who had once commanded those same agents was now their target. The 38-second confrontation that ended a career was over. The investigation that followed would reshape American law enforcement for decades. If these revelations shocked you, don't just watch. Like, share, and subscribe where truth gets exposed and corruption gets time-stamped. Hit the bell. The next bombshell might be about your president. What would you do if you had evidence this explosive? Drop a comment below.